Hello, Mr. Montalvo here, U.S. History, and today we're going to take a look at um, Unit 3, Lesson 1, taking a look at the founding documents. Today our focus is the New York State Constitution of 1777. Our objectives for today: to examine the New York State Constitution, its main ideas and provisions, and its influence on the formation of the United States Constitution later on. In addition to that, we're going to try to explain how the United States Constitution attempted to address the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation. So taking a look back at the previous lesson, try to think about how the economic depression affected the farmers and then what that eventually led to. Important to note today, as far as key terms or vocabulary, are bicameral and Bill of Rights. Now, bicameral just means two bodies, and we're going to be talking about two bodies as in two forms or parts of a legislature being a body that makes laws. In a previous video, we discussed unicameral, which is one body. With this new constitution, we're going to see the benefits and some of the weaknesses or takebacks of a bicameral system. In addition to that, a Bill of Rights is just a list of freedoms that the government promises to protect. The Constitution of New York was ratified on April 20th, 1777. The Constitution addressed the provision of self-government in the new state, following the Declaration of Independence. Now, unlike the Articles of Confederation, the New York State government has a bicameral legislature, and they do till this day. New York State government also differed from the Constitution, calling for an executive branch, a legislative branch, and a judicial branch. Now, this is a concept we're going to go into more in depth in our next video. But for now, this would directly influence the authors of the Constitution, who noted the effectiveness of separating powers in order to ensure fairness and impartiality. Colonists were too concerned about putting too much power in the hands of too few people. And in order to avoid this, they divided the powers of government between an executive and the legislative, or the legislature. Every state had a legislature that passed laws. The voters elected lawmakers. In New York State, we have the New York State Assembly and the New York State Senate. Prior to understanding prior knowledge, in what form of government do people elect others to make decisions on their behalf? Power in the legislature was divided between the upper house, called the Senate, and the lower house, called the House of Representatives, on the federal level for the United States. All states except Pennsylvania had a governor or executive. An executive is a person who runs the government and sees the laws, make sure that those laws are carried out. Now, what are the advantages of dividing up power into different branches, into different parts? Virginia further limited the power of government by including a Bill of Rights in its constitution. The Bill of Rights protected the rights of religion and freedom of the press, trial by jury, and it limited searches and arrests, connecting to some of the struggles that were identified by the colonists in the second part of the Declaration of Independence. Now, other states soon followed Virginia's example and created their own Bill of Rights that they would then attach to their individual state constitutions. The state constitutions also expanded the right to vote. Now, under the Constitution, you could vote if you were a white male over the age of 21. In a few states, women and free African Americans could vote. The American Revolution did not prompt a radical redefinition of the right to vote. In 1786, only 2 of the original 13 states, Georgia and South Carolina, expressly restricted voting restrictions to the eligible white population, meaning only white men could vote. The U.S. Constitution, written in 1787, recognized the authority of the states to define the right to vote, meaning that who could vote depended on what state you lived in. Between 1776 and 1860, about 1/3 of the states permitted voting by free African American adult males. Now, the New York State Constitution called for the election of a governor and 24 senators. It also called for the election of 70 assemblymen. New York was occupied by the British in the South and couldn't enact its full authority until after the Revolution. Now, that's a brief summary of today's lesson. Below, I'm going to attach, for your reading, the New York State Constitution. And just as a takeaway, try to understand, why did the New York State Constitution call for a bicameral legislature? Now, that's all for today. Thank you for your time.